So even a brief scan over this channel will probably reveal my love for a good old-fashioned 60s gung-ho war adventure movie. It only took 20 years for World War II movies to undergo a pretty drastic tone change to basically maintain their audience. The James Bond movies were now a thing, and the cinema-going public wanted some big-budget escapism. And therefore, most World War II movies were just that, escapism and rollicking adventure made from a pretty solemn subject matter. And after the huge success of the relatively realistic 1963 The Great Escape, ex-pilot turned author David Westheimer wrote Von Ryan's Express, an ambitious blockbuster that fused bits and pieces from The Great Escape and The Bridge on the River Kwai, and star Frank Sinatra's enthusiasm to play the role pushed it into production. Let's take a look. So Von Ryan's Express sees Sinatra's pilot shot down over Italy, ending up in an Italian POW camp full of British soldiers. And it's here that he's introduced to Trevor Howard's Major Fincham and takes over from him as the senior officer of the prisoners. Now, it's in this first third of the film that the Great Escape, River Kwai influences are felt as the troops butt heads with their Italian captors in order to get access to rations and clothing, with these things having been denied due to the Allies' constant escape attempts.
Those stir crazy limey officers are trying to fight the Wolfmen here.
Yeah, they got so many tunnels dug, sir. You don't watch where you walk, you fall into one.
You expect me to keep them from digging?
You got the rank for it, sir.
Now, there's probably an entire film to be had here as Ryan realises that war will soon be over and the camp will be liberated. So escape attempts seem a little pointless. The prisoners may as well just toe the line and wait to be rescued. However, the stiff upper-lipped Trevor Howard sees it as his duty to mount escapes.
I can't expect you to understand this, but these men belong to the 9th Fusiliers. This regiment fought with Marlborough in 1704, with Wellington against Napoleon, froze and died in the Crimea. These men are all volunteers to a man, professionals, and they've come to fight a war.
Now, this all culminates in a pivotal moment when Ryan actually grasses up the latest escape attempt to get the prisoners soap and hot water, much to the British Major's astonishment and fury.
Ryan! Ryan, you can't do this. You can't do this to anyone.
I'm glad you could join us, Major.
If you betray us, I promise you, you'll pay for it.
You're just in time to watch. Matter of fact, you can have the men turn about face and they can watch too. Major?
Anyway, before you know it, Ryan's disruptive behaviour gets him thrown in the sweatbox as punishment. And this is the kind of moment in the movie where you may expect a battle of wills to break out between Sinatra and the Italian camp's overlord, Battaglia, played by Adolfo Celi, who you may recognise as Largo, Bond's nemesis in Thunderball. But what actually happens is that the camp is liberated and the Italians have fled with the exception of Battaglia and his captain, who Trevor Howard's major attempts to try in a makeshift kangaroo court. But the whole thing is again stopped by Ryan, yet another reason for him and his British counterpart to butt heads.
What happens when you find him guilty? According to regulations, of course.
He will be sentenced to death and hanged.
And that'll be murder because this man is now a civilian.
No, sir.
Major, release this man. Oriani, get him out of here.
The parade will stand at ease.
And while that seems like a lot of plot, and it is, but I can assure you that it's only just begun. You see, as the title suggests, this is actually a train movie, and the freshly liberated soldiers are no sooner on the move from the camp than they are ambushed because of that pesky Battaglia, the one who Ryan let live. And again, Trevor Howard by this time is at his wit's end with the American pilot.
They've cared for our wounded properly now, the poor bastards. Just because you let Battaglia live, you'll get your Iron Cross now, Von Ryan.
So, can the gang take over the train and ride that thing straight into Switzerland, all to the match of another great Jerry Goldsmith score? Maybe, but it's not going to be easy. Now, I do love the fact that Von Ryan's Express quite seamlessly morphs from POW drama to train escape film and ultimately good old World War II action movie. And features a central hero who doesn't always make the right choices. I mean, Ryan seems to be the voice of reason, certainly when he's going up against Trevor Howard's stubborn by-the-book captain. But we see how that can backfire with fatal consequences sometimes. You do get frustrated with Howard's holier-than-thou attitude and end up getting stuck in the middle. And I suppose it's a message that in war there aren't really any easy decisions or right answers. Now, the second half is where the actual action and adventure takes over, and Ryan leads the men here on a daring escape after they've all been thrown onto a prison train. The daring escape includes risking their lives to overpower the German guards, and then dupe the various German officers they encounter along the way into believing that the train is still under Nazi control. All of which builds up to the action-packed ending as they try and make it to Switzerland but find themselves being hunted down by another train packed full of Germans. Now, it's all as gloriously over the top and bonkers as it sounds, and whilst this second half does become more action-packed, it doesn't forget to keep things light and breezy. The moment a POW vicar finds himself having to impersonate a German officer, as we discover ever so conveniently he's the only one who can speak fluent German, you just have to admit that all bets are off and just go with the flow.
Right. Oh, no. But look at this picture. I don't look remotely like this chap. No. I won't do it. I won't do it. Absolutely not. Heil Hitler!
So as I mentioned, Von Ryan's Express was based on the novel by David Westheimer, who, like Sinatra's character, was actually shot down over Italy and did spend time in a prison camp run by the German Wehrmacht. So Sinatra's fine in the title role, although he doesn't get a great deal to do. It's probably not a massive stretch for him. For me personally, Trevor Howard steals the whole thing. I'm a big fan of his. I love his British traditionalism here and his refusal to bow to the fascists or the Nazis.
We have today buried our commanding officer, Colonel Brian David Lockhart. The purpose of this parade is to bear witness to his death and charge the man responsible for it.
And there are times, admittedly, throughout the film where you really have to side with him after it appears Ryan has actually dropped them all in it. Now, it's only when the film throws in the lovely Raffaella Carrà as the seductive Gabriella that you notice that there hasn't been any female characters in the movie. It's a shame then that she's only really on screen to kind of flash her legs and not much else.
All the comforts of home.
Please, I am Italian. I've done nothing. Please.
What on earth are you doing here, my child?
Padre, you're priceless.
So by the mid-60s, 20th Century Fox was still licking its wounds from the financial bashing it took on Cleopatra. And despite a lot of great Italian locations, there's also some pretty clever studio work on show here. The entire Italian prison camp was filmed in Los Angeles. So as I mentioned earlier, by this point in the mid to late 60s, World War II films were being presented as rollicking adventure entertainment. The heroes were cool, the villains were mostly buffoons. And this one here was directed by Mark Robson, whose only other film I think I've seen is 1974's Earthquake. It's a nippy enough action flick that, coming in at just under 2 hours, knows what it is, and certainly doesn't outstay its welcome. So along with the underappreciated The Detective from 1968, this was one of Frank Sinatra's last great roles, really. He probably doesn't get enough respect for his acting career. Obviously, his singing career is one of the singing careers, but with performances in the films that I've just mentioned, as well as The Man with the Golden Arm and The Manchurian Candidate, etc., he had a very solid run through the 50s, 60s and 70s. Von Ryan's Express might not hit those heights of The Great Escape or Where Eagles Dare, but it does come relatively close. Go check it out.